Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Brian Kelly, the LSU Tigers continue to do work in upgrading this defensive coaching staff, going out and hiring Corey Raymond back to LSU. And I've read the message boards, I've read Twitter, and quite frankly, I've seen the skepticism, and I understand some of the skepticism for LSU fans and Corey Raymond coming back to Baton Rouge. I'm kind of have an optimistic outlook on it. I'm going to kind of give you guys my pitch on why I think Corey Raymond is a phenomenal hire for the LSU Tigers. And I think what's most exciting for LSU, this is something that we've talked about extensively over the last couple of weeks, is Brian Kelly and this LSU program's commitment to getting this defense right. We've talked Bryce Underwood, Harlem Berry, the Corian Moore, all coming in that 2025 class. The LSU offense in 2024 already looks to be a very dangerous unit. Brian Kelly knows that this offense is going to be elite for the next couple of years. And he sees that we just got to get this defense right. And if we get this defense right, and this is going to be a premier contender, not only for SEC championships, but for national championships as well. And Corey Raymond, going back to his first stint at LSU, was an elite recruiter, developed some phenomenal guys in that defensive back room. And there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about it as well. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys and a shout out to the LSU fans. This has been a program that truly has been a blast to talk about the last couple of weeks, whether we're talking defensive coaching staff changes, transfer portal, the amount of support you guys have shown really does mean a lot. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to have a conversation with you guys in the comment section on how we're feeling about Corey Raymond coming back to LSU. Without further ado, I want to get into Corey Raymond, talk a little bit about why I'm optimistic about this hire. And it starts off with, there's a lot of, I think, a lot of bad taste in a lot of LSU fans' mouths about how Corey Raymond, or when Corey Raymond, I should say, left this program, right? The program was largely in disarray. It was getting really sloppy, and I would largely contribute that to kind of Coach O. And although Coach O brought LSU to just extraordinary heights, obviously with the national championship, towards the end of Coach O's tenure, I don't think enough people, especially in the national media, give enough credit to, how bad of a position and program LSU was in, or state of the program LSU was in when Coach O was leaving. The depth chart was all over the place. The scholarship allocation was absolutely whacked. I think Corey Raymond was largely kind of a casualty of a really mismanaged program over the last couple of years of Coach O's stint. And so, yes, was Corey Raymond probably underperforming as a defensive backs coach for LSU when he was leaving? Yeah, you could probably make that argument, but I would make a strong argument that, Coach O did not have this program in it wasn't a very tight ship, I guess you could say, when Coach O was on his way out. Bo Pelini was a complete disaster for the LSU Tigers. I think there was a lot more contributing factors to Corey Raymond not necessarily looking like the best defensive backs coach than just being on Corey Raymond. And then you go to his time at Florida, where he inherited an extremely young defensive back room, where he was playing multiple true freshmen the last 2 years and had to deal with two different defensive coordinators during his time at the Florida Gators. There just wasn't a lot of stability towards the end of Corey Raymond's time at LSU and during his time at the Florida Gators. So why am I optimistic about Corey Raymond coming back to LSU when Corey Raymond was at the height of his powers, I guess you'd say, during his time at LSU? The recruiting was absolutely phenomenal. The development was extremely good as well. You take a look at some of the guys that Corey Raymond brought in during his time, and I was doing a little research and looking at this list before we went live here. This was kind of an unprecedented run in terms of defensive back talent that Corey Raymond was bringing to Baton Rouge, right? Derek Stingley, Eli Ricks, you continue to scroll down the list, guys like Keyshawn Butte, Christian Fulton. The amount of talent that was coming to LSU that Corey Raymond was playing a part in was absolutely massive. And we talk about this extensively in terms of recruiting the state of Louisiana. And if LSU really reaches back to the powers that we want to see LSU get to, it comes at locking down the state of Louisiana. Corey Raymond, born and raised in Louisiana, played football for LSU. The recruiting in the state of Louisiana is no doubt going to continue to be strong under Corey Raymond. At the end of the day, Corey Raymond has been one of the better recruiters across the country during his time at LSU, but also his time at Florida. And I continue to scroll down this list, and it is truly just an embarrassment of riches, right? Calvin Joseph, Tre'Davious White, obviously as a Bills fan, loved that. But even his time at Florida, he played a role in grabbing a lot of premier talent and developing that talent as well. So do I understand some of the skepticism around the Corey Raymond hire? Yeah, I totally get it. But he's a guy that I think is going to come into a way better position with Brian Kelly, who running a much tighter ship than what Coach O ran. Blake Baker's a phenomenal defensive coordinator. Corey Raymond hasn't, the last couple of years, hasn't really experienced that, right? He took over a Florida Gators defense that was a disaster. Billy Napier was obviously getting his feet wet at the Florida Gators, had to do with two different defensive coordinators. At the end of his tenure at LSU, was dealing with Bo Pelini. I mean, it's hard to look like a good defensive backs coach when you're dealing with the defensive coordinators that Corey Raymond was dealing with over the last couple of years, whether they're young defensive coordinators like Austin Armstrong at Florida, or whether they're just not good defensive coordinators like Bo Pelini spending way too much time on the golf course. So I think I'm pretty optimistic about Corey Raymond coming into a situation that's about as stable as it's been for him over the last 5 years. And then you combine that with the recruiting and development that you've seen from Corey Raymond during his tenure at LSU during the early parts. I mean, this is a hire in my mind I think could work out in a massive way. And again, the position that he's coming into is, excuse me, a lot more stable than I think it was towards the end of his tenure at LSU. Now, really quick, I gave you guys my thoughts on Corey Raymond. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. I also want to just float this one out there for LSU fans, because we were talking about this last time. We were talking about LSU in the transfer portal, and that is some targets that are still emerging for LSU. And we kind of established that they need some big bodies on that defensive line heading into the 2024 year. There's some good news on the LSU front, right? Dontre Robinson, 4-star defensive lineman from the state of Florida, was committed to Texas, signed his letter of national intent, and then has requested a release from that and was granted that earlier this afternoon. So Dontre Robinson immediately on the market again. And it sounds like LSU is probably a huge player in this. And you talk about two things. One, Dontre Robinson, a very exciting prospect who, again, 6'4", 315, a phenomenal athlete, a ton of power in his hands. Remember talking about him when he committed to Texas. Very exciting football player. But you combine that with really a position of need for LSU, right? Getting Dominic McKinley was huge. But if you can add a guy like Dontre Robinson to continue to add depth and size on that defensive line, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a major target for LSU. But more importantly, I would think LSU's in a great spot to land Dontre Robinson, right? He committed to the Texas Longhorns when Bo Davis was the defensive line coach. Now Bo Davis is at LSU. Dontre Robinson was considering LSU before even committing to Texas. To me, when you kind of combine those factors, it sounds like Dontre Robinson has a very good shot at winding up back at Baton Rouge. So that's another very exciting development for LSU. Obviously, we're still watching for Des Ricks, who's taking a visit to Texas A&M, I believe, this afternoon. I think LSU is still in the running for that one. So one, really big fan of what Brian Kelly's doing on the defensive coaching staff. I'm pretty optimistic about Corey Raymond. And again, I'm not trying to ignore the concerns that LSU fans have, because I totally understand them. But I think the situation that Corey Raymond is coming into is a lot more stable than he's experienced the last couple of years towards the end of LSU and during the Florida Gators. So I'm excited for Corey Raymond. I think he can recruit well. I think he can develop well. And obviously, Dontre Robinson emerging as a target for LSU. A lot of exciting things going on for this LSU program, a program that I know we're going to continue to talk about over the next couple of weeks. Again, LSU fans, cannot thank you guys enough for all the support. I've had just an absolute blast hopping on, talking about the defensive coaching staff changes, talking about this program in the transfer portal. Cannot thank you guys enough for all the support. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.